Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
Officially call the meeting to order. I think it's 6:01. This meeting of the Wyndham Northeast Union Elementary School District, representing the towns of Athens, Grafton, and Westminster. Let me ask if there are any adjustments to the agenda. Okay, hearing none, I note that a number of the administrative team are here. Thank you all, as are both of our school principals and some members of the public. So we're delighted to see you all. Let me ask initially if there are any communications and public comments. You can indicate by way of the chat that you'd like to speak, or you may simply speak.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat right now, Cheryl.
Chris, thank you so much. Both our Superintendent Pratt and Dr. Carey, our Assistant Superintendent, are with us, so thank you both. I will then move into review and approval of the board minutes for August 6th, 2020. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Was that Jessa or Lynn?
That was Jessa.
Thank you, Jessa. Not that we need a second, but is there a second?
I'll second that. It's Lynn.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Are there any corrections? I have one in that my name is spelled incorrectly, not Charles Chase, but Cheryl Charles. So if the record could show that. I think it said Cheryl Chase, so merged us. Not a problem. I didn't see anything substantive other than that simple correction. Anything else? If not, I'll do a quick roll call, since in this Zoom format, we do a roll call vote to approve any of the minutes. So, Jessa West-Clark?
Yes.
Lynn Morgan?
Yes.
Jack Breyer?
Yes.
Thank you, and I'll say yes as well. And so the minutes from August 6th are approved. The next agenda item is reports, and the first of those is a report from the superintendent and the assistant superintendent. Thank you both for being here. Chris, we'll start with you, and really appreciate your adding yet another meeting at this important time.
You're welcome. Good evening, everybody. I think most of, my report I was gonna be floored to the principals, and Dr. Carey might want to give a couple updates on the Vermont virtual learning, because it's all in the same. So I'm going to yield the floor to Dr. Carey to see if she has anything she would like to add in regards to the virtual learning. I know she's been working very hard on that and so Lynn, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Chris, and thank you, Cheryl, for your kind words, and thank you to the board. So we have updated everyone as of today. We have been fielding many phone calls and many emails about people wanting information. We do have and I sent to all the board members tonight, and that's across the district, the virtual learning handbook that we developed to help answer questions, and that came to us from the VTVLC, and I just modified it to suit our purposes. Also, you'll see tonight that I did send a newsletter that we have a coordinator at the district, and her name is Michelle Harrington, and she is actually the one that's going to be making the contacts, uploading, and so we're working together kind of as a team. And she put together this this kind of a brochure newsletter for families, and sent it to the family so that they would have something that they can read that would give them information. What is hard is we have uploaded the names. The Virtual Learning Academy collaboration is putting together, making sure the students are aligned in the classrooms and making sure all those things are ready to go. Once the teachers actually have their class lists while we're organizing at this point, they will start making the actual contact with the families and making that information available to the families and more of a personalized interaction. At this point, virtual learning is new to us, and it's new. This collaboration has gone from 0 to 100 miles an hour because of the COVID. So we're learning this together. And we understand too that many parents have many questions and they're unsure. And what we have been spending the majority of our days is replying to parents, helping them understand this is the information we have, this is how it works, this is what's going to happen. You have 2 weeks to withdraw from the program if you feel it's not for you. And we do need to, maybe we weren't that clear in the beginning, but parents will probably have to be partners in their children's learning for this program. They will have to help somehow. They will have to make sure that the student has a place to be, and that they can support the student, and they will be speaking to the coordinator once a week. So it does rely a lot with parental support. And once they get the contact from their teachers, they will have that direct person to talk to email, to call, to ask those specific questions that we just don't have the answers to right now. We're all learning this together. But I do know the virtual VLC has been at it for several years. They have a great academy. The teachers that have volunteered from our district to do this for us, which are listed in the newsletter, and the grade levels, they have also agreed to take on 3 college courses to get certified in virtual learning, which is something that is very expensive. The district is going to pay for it, but it's also a great certification for these teachers to have. But they have to put in the time doing a portfolio, having, like having like a student teaching type situation where they're going to be supported by people from the Virtual Learning Academy, telling them and helping them to do this in the best possible way. So it's a great undertaking for our district. We're thrilled that we were able to offer it to our families. There's a lot involved, and we have asked, as you can see in some of my emails, we've asked for grace and patience and flexibility, because again, this is not new to VTVLC, but this massive amount, this large amount of putting things together is. So the scale of what we're doing is new, and we're learning as we go. I believe the quality's there. Again, parents can leave after the first 2 weeks if they decide they don't like it. And they will also have the opportunity to not take spring courses. So in January, when the fall semester is done, they do have the option of returning back to their schools. However, we don't know what's going to happen this winter. So
let me give the board a little bit of a timeline in regards to when they started their training and when they would anticipate finishing that.
The teachers themselves?
Yes.
The teachers have been in training for over 2 weeks now. So the teachers that we have been in mandatory trainings, and our coordinator has also been in trainings, and their courses are going to be, I believe, split up 3 months each. and they will be working all throughout the school year. The teachers had to make a commitment of 1 year. They can't decide after 2 weeks or at the fall semester that they're going to leave. They made that commitment, and they're really living up to it. They're really working hard. They will have classes of 20 kids, whereas our in-school classrooms are very, very small because they have A days and B days. And they will be also, instructing these kids with assignments and learning for an entire week. There's pros and cons to both of it, but these teachers have really taken on a great, they've just been really great to volunteer, and we're really thrilled to offer it to the families, but they are in training. So we will know so much more next week. And we're just asking for some grace from the families, for some understanding. We don't have anything in stone yet. If we do this again next year, we'll know a lot more.
Thank
Thank you.
And Cheryl,
Well, that's, go ahead, Chris, I'm sorry.
as part of the SU report, I also wanted to give Mr. Haas an opportunity if he wanted to talk a little bit about how it looks like for special education kids, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there of what it is and what it isn't. So I wanted him the opportunity just to give clarity with everyone in regards to what it looks like. Andy, you want to just give a brief overview so people understand?
Yeah, no, thank you, Chris. So a couple of things. First, just to kind of piggyback on what Dr. Carey was talking about, so people understand, we've dedicated 2 special educators to provide services to students who are going to be doing the remote learning. So they'll be providing that direct support for kids. They're not in the same grouping as the folks Dr. Carey was talking about, because they're going to remain with us. So if our numbers diminish quite a bit, we might be able to pivot one of them back into the building type of thing. But those students will still get the supports that are appropriate for them. As far as just special ed in general, what we have to do is we have to look at what is the regular environment for all kids, and then special education services are on top of that. And so services will look different for families and for students that they typically looked like when we were in person pre-COVID. So things may pivot and shift because the students' needs may be greater or less. And so that's all done on an individual basis with families and with IEP or individual education plan teams, sitting down and discussing what those services will look like, and then revising IEPs. The other piece, and it was mentioned yesterday about special ed students coming in 4 days a week as opposed to the 2 days. And at one point it was mentioned that all special ed kids are, and I just want to clarify that it's only a small percentage of our population at this time, because again, we have to go back and look at the individual needs of each student, and we have to be able to justify if we are changing the educational setting or the amount of education a student is getting based on those needs and what the data is saying. And so what we first focused on were our students who are in our intensive needs or life skills classes, who generally are the population that come for extended school year, which is over the summer. And this year we did in person with those students because they learn better by being in person as opposed to the remote. And the majority of those students were not successful remote. And so we reached out to those families and case managers have spoken with them or met with them to just, for the team to decide, is 4 days better, is 3 days better, and have that conversation. And so for the elementary board, just so they know, there are no students at Westminster or Grafton at this time that are attending 4 days a week. The students who are attending either attend our central elementary school in the intensive needs classroom there, or at Bellows Falls Middle School and High School in the life skills classroom. And it's a mixture. Some kids are only coming in 2 days a week. Some kids are, I know of one where the discussion was they're going to come for like the 2 days of hybrid with their cohort, and then they might come for half days on the other 2 days to receive some of their services like occupational therapy or speech, because again, remote didn't work for them. And so we're trying to provide the best service for those kids. So it's looking very individual. As we continue down this road and we gain more data on students, we may come back and look at other students and see if there would be a reason to have those students attend 4 days a week. But we have to gain that data, and it's going to take a little bit of time while they're in school, because we have to compare that data to where they were again pre-COVID. We can't look at just the loss of learning during COVID because all students lost learning. So that's kind of a summary where we are.
Andy, can you get into just a little bit in regards to so the board and the public has an understanding of regards to what it means in regards to looking at the IEPs and revisiting the IEPs, because we're talking about changing a lot of services, and get in a little bit the undertaking that the special the student services has, and what can parents expect for IEP meetings and just general yes, not necessarily the meetings, that the IEP meetings that usually take place. What can they expect from that looking forward?
Yeah, no, fair question. So we start, everything starts with what we use, the acronym we use is FAPE, which is Free and Appropriate Education. And that's that baseline what every kid is receiving. And then what does it take for a student to be able to access that FAPE? And so when we're meeting with families, so we've got about 300 meetings that we need to conduct before September 8th. And so many of them we can do what's called a 5B revision, and 5B is the actual paper. And it allows us to do not hold a meeting where everybody sits down and has a conversation, but we can have a phone conversation with a parent and discuss the changes in services. So an example of a service might be a student who received speech therapy, and when we were in person, they received it 3 times a week for 30 minutes. And now that we're in a hybrid situation, obviously we can't give 3 times 30. So we might look at adjusting that to the environment, to what can we provide in person, and then what's appropriate for remote on those days when the student is home. And we know that, based on the AOE guidelines, that, students at different ages should only be online for a certain amount of time. And so we don't want to overburden families with kids being on the computer for lengthy periods of time. So that remote time might be reduced during this period, because that's all the student can sustain. And so that's an individual conversation. And then there are some times that we may feel it's appropriate, either based on the parent wishes or just what the school feels, is to try and hold a meeting, and we're doing everything via Zoom, and to sit down and really just talk about those services. And that's really what we're talking about, is those services and how they adjust in the learning environment. And what we're trying to do right now is actually develop an IEP with services in 2 different environments. So, like, again, I'll take the hybrid student, looking at services and developing those hybrid services. So if a student saw a special educator for mathematics support, again, they saw them every day, so that's 5 times, and they saw them for 30 minutes. It might be 2 times in person where they see them, and then the support might be different remote, again, at a reduced time, just because of the kid's ability to sustain. But what we would do is that would be the hybrid model, and we would develop services for that. And then we're also going to be developing, trying to project that if we had to go to fully remote again, what would those services look like, so that we could pivot very quickly without having to try and call another meeting, because we know it's hard for parents always to attend meetings. And this last year, when we went into the dismissal, it was quite challenging for us to hold all those meetings. So we're trying to build it with the two services in there, the AOEs allowing us to do this. And then we can switch back and forth. So, you know, we can predict scenarios where we start out in a hybrid. Maybe we have to pivot to a remote, and then pivot back to a hybrid. And then, you know, in a perfect light, we move into a full person. We would then revise the IEP again for the full person and kind of move that way. So we're trying to build some flexibility in, so we don't have to we can kind of predict what the kids are going to need for services.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, that's the central office report.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you to you, Chris, to Lynn, and to Andy for all of that good information. Let me see if there are any questions from board members for any of the three of you. I think we can do it that way with this kind of comprehensive report you've offered. So to the board members, any questions for either Chris, Lynn, or Andy? Looks like Jack is leaning forward. Is that a question, Jack?
I'm losing my voice, sorry. If we have regular ed students that aren't on IEPs, but we can see that they're sinking fast if they're online, what is our ability to step in and say, this is not going to work, and to bring them back into to our in-person / hybrid program? Are we going to be stuck in that regard, or do we have some flexibility? How is that going to work?
I think Dr. Carey could best answer that question.
I didn't know if anybody could.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Jack. So we can't take the kids out after 2 weeks until the end of the fall semester, because it just would interrupt their learning sequence and the learning sequence of the teachers teaching the students in school. However, we do have a system set up. It's called EST, and it's a student support, a student study team, where when they find students that are really struggling, a team gets together and tries, it's called, we also use MTSS, which is multi-tiered systems of support. So the team comes together and says, well, we think this is happening for this child. What if we did this? So what if we, you know, spent more time working with a child on this or that? But essentially the EST probably would have to be coordinated by the Virtual Learning Academy, because they're taking over the curriculum and the students' learning at that point. If the parents feel that their student is not doing well, at the end of the fall semester, which would be actually January, they have the opportunity to bring them back to school and bring them back to the hybrid. If we're still doing hybrid, it's 3 days remote versus 5 days remote. So that's kind of where we are now. But we do have a special ed teacher in both the middle school and the elementary level that are dedicated to the students working online. And I would believe that we would probably put together an EST to try and see what's going on with a student. But if a student develops a serious learning disability or some kind of learning problem at the time, then we probably would have known it ahead of time. They would have had an IEP. It would just be a question of whether remote works for them or not, because disabilities are pretty much identified at the district level anyway. But we would have an EST with our special educator and a team from the Vermont Learning Academy to step in. That would be the short answer.
If I could
Thank you,
piggyback on that.
I think
Could I piggyback? So, and I support what Dr. Carey's saying. I think the other piece is the special educator that we've dedicated for the elementary school is a former instructor with the Vermont Learning Academy, the collaborative, and provided student support. And so in talking with her, but also in talking with the director, because I wanted to ensure it was going to work for, kids with IEPs, obviously. There is quite a lot of built-in supports into the collaborative that meet a lot of accommodations for kids prior, that all kids have access to, like extended time and redos on tests and quizzes. And then as Dr. Carey has talked about, the amount of supports, whether it's through the classroom teacher or through our coordinator, those supports are in place. And then nothing goes away just because a kid is in that environment. Just as Dr. Carey was saying with the EST and the whole referral process or supports that we would provide to a student in person would still be in place in that virtual learning environment. So you just think about it, the virtual learning environment's like another school building. And so it's a matter of setting up those same systems of support so that if it's, as Dr. Carey was saying, we would put together that educational support plan if a student needed it. And then if there needed to be some type of referral for evaluation, we would follow our same process that we follow right now. And in fact, we just had a meeting today for a student with a 504, and we realized we needed more information to inform that team, as far as what that child was going to need for support. We were able to reach out to the Learning Collab and literally within minutes get back the information we needed to inform that child's team to write a plan so that student could be successful in that environment. So I think there's a lot of great communication and opportunity for kids to be successful.
Thank you. Let me ask if there are any other board members that have questions. Lynn's shaking her head no. Okay. Anything from Jessa? Not now. Okay. Let me say for purposes of Jessa, did you want to say something?
No, I'm all set, thanks. The button doesn't come up until I hit it twice.
Okay. What I wanted to say for purposes of those members of the public who will be watching this on Fact TV, we've just heard a presentation from the superintendent, Chris Pratt, from the assistant superintendent, Dr. Lynn Carey, and from our director of student services, Andy Haas. And that's really helping to give us a sense of the preparations in place for school to reopen on September 8th. Andy, one point to you, I think you've said this to us before, but there are more than 300 IEPs, which is individual education plans for students, in the works right now. And you just said a few minutes ago that individual calls need to be made to make sure those plans are all in place and set to be working for each of those children. Lynn, one question to you about the remote learning. I know you sent us today, board members, the new newsletter from the Vermont Learning Collaborative that shows us in Windham Northeast which teacher at which grade level. I missed whether all the parents have gotten that yet. Has that gone out to all the parents?
Yeah, yes, it has. Our coordinator, Michelle Harrington, has sent it out.
Perfect. So at least they've gotten that information, and now they'll get more personalized contact as the registration lists get firmed up and we know with students or with teachers more formally. And then to reiterate, each of those teachers who will be assisting and being primarily responsible for the remote learning are going through a training right now, a special training, and they'll be continuing that throughout the school year, which is great. So now let's dive into, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, they've been in training since last week. They've been in training right along. This is their second week of training, and they'll have more training next week.
And that's great. Thank you. And then, so as the agenda is showing us, it's time now to dive into what's going on at each of the schools. And we're delighted to have both of the principals here. And let's start with Liz Hardy with Westminster. And then I'd like the agenda brought down so we can more easily see people. Liz?
Hi.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so we welcome back our staff this week, which was wonderful to have everyone back in the building so we could start fine-tuning our new systems and problem solving before students come. We have collaborated with Grafton and with Saxons River Elementary this week to provide some great professional development to our staff. We're focusing on the distance learning playbook, which is based off of the research by John Hattie, written by John Hattie, Doug Fisher, and Nancy Fry, and explores just best practices in in-person and remote learning. As Helen and I and Laura have been doing, we're connecting via Google Meet. So we're really modeling for staff how we're using Google Meet this year, and we're modeling the Google Classroom, which teachers will be using in their remote learners. It just has great information to put in the forefront of our minds as we begin the year, discussing just the importance of relationships, teacher clarity, creating norms, positive class culture, all of these basic strategies that land us in the zone of desired effect. So all these strategies that we really want to put most of our effort in. Other than that, we've just been getting the school ready, finishing up the floors, building shelving, painting, moving furniture, installing extra hand sanitizer pumps, installing additional sinks, and just meeting and planning out our year as best we can before our students come. Next Thursday, September 3rd, we'll be handing out devices to families. So families can come either from 7:30 to 10 in the morning or 4 to 7 in the evening to pick up their either their Chromebook or their iPad. And families were sent the tech agreement this week and will be asked to sign a copy when they pick up their child's device next week. Also next week, classroom teachers will be meeting with each class, which is grade level. I'll be also attending these meetings to answer questions and to clarify any concerns that families may have before we begin the following week. So that's really the bulk of the work we've been doing. And we're just excited to get the kids back and get the year started. It's just been a lot of prep all summer. So we're really just excited to hit the ground running now with our students.
Great. Let's hear from Helen next, and then we'll just open it up to questions for either or both of you, since some of them may be the same. Helen, please. You're on mute. You're muted.
You know, I talk about that all day long and I forget it sometimes.
No worries, thank you.
Good evening. And I wanted to begin by thanking the board for approving the teachers beginning their work this week, because we've been saying over and over all week long, like, I don't know how we would have done this if we had just next week. So this has been like a great gift to have this time to be able to really work, really intensely with the faculty and help them. I kind of call it a grieving process, because what they've had to do is to really let go of what school used to look like for many of them who have been teaching for many years, and relearn, how are we going to do school? What are the processes and structures and routines that now need to be put in place to keep everyone safe and optimize learning? So thank you for approving that request and giving us the time that we so very desperately needed this week. And as Liz said, we've been having a great week with collaborating with Saxons River and Westminster. We meet every morning at 8 o'clock for about an hour and are really diving in deep into learning the effective strategies for distance learning. And as she said, this is John Hattie's work, and he's one of these researchers in education that's done a meta-analysis of all the best strategies in teaching. And so we're really focusing in on the most effective ones, where you get the best effect if you apply this strategy for optimizing learning. So that's been great conversations. It's fun to see people going back and forth and talking with one another. And it's actually a goal that we have, is to keep this collaboration going all year long and continue to work in grade level teams to just keep building their expertise. The staff at Grafton is amazing to work with. I'm having a fun time and a great time working with them and helping them process all of this, and even letting them cry a little bit, because this is hard. This is really hard work, and being able to do that and then move on and figure it out. You know, they can do it, and they know they can do it, but they just need to have time and space to be okay. You know, I would say there's a fair amount of anxiety, you know, both with parents and teachers, and I'm sure there will be with kids when they return. So we're getting to practice how we deal with that anxiety and be positive about it, and, you know, just keep moving forward. You know, I'm sure that Liz is experiencing this too. You know, it's like a chessboard with all these moving pieces. You know, we finally figure out something, and then all of a sudden, you know, the king moves, and then we need to go, oh, wait a minute, that's not going to work. We're going to have to, you know, rethink that and readjust and redesign. So it's been a process like that that's been going on all week. Let's see. So we've also had some additional PD this week with Christine Smith. Is that her last name? Tina Smith, who's been providing some sort of just-in-time PD. Like we did a session on choosing the best site to host your platform for remote learning. And so then she did that afternoon Google Classroom training. So the teachers actually got to apply it, set up their classroom, get everything ready. And then today, we were learning a lot about relationships. And so then this afternoon, she you know, provided some tech tools for them to use to help kids share their work. So it's been great to have that collaboration with her to give the teachers the support and training that they need. And they're pretty jazzed up about it and excited. One of the plans that we're doing is we're having morning meeting, like most schools are, every morning. And we're inviting our students who are hybrid but remote to join every morning and to check in with us and to be part of that community. Because one of the goals we have this year is to keep the strong Grafton community together. And even kids who are in the virtual learning collaborative, we want to invite them on Wednesdays and any other day really that they can make it work to join that time during the day and just participate so that they feel like they are connected to their Grafton friends, and they're listening and learning and hearing, because some of them might return to us in 2 weeks and some might return in January. So we want to keep that strong connection going and make them feel welcome to be a part of it. We have our device sign out and pickups going on next week. And because Grafton's so small, we're going to do, we're going to set up 4 tables outside, and they've set up a schedule where 2 families at a time will come, and they're actually going to model for parents how to get on Google Classroom, teach them how to do it, show them where everything is, you know, all those pieces that were pretty frustrating for parents in the spring. And so they're going to just do that and have a one-on-one session with a couple of families at a time. And that's spread out through the week so that, you know, parents will come and go, and it'll be outdoors in the parking lot. Looks like the rain's not going to be here next week, so we're hoping that works. And then the other piece I thought I would, that I wanted to mention the great work that Ricky has done to get all the Chromebooks and cases together. They're beautiful. And the kids have to carry these back and forth every single day that they come to school. And they're labeled and they're nicely organized and padded. And all the child has to do is kind of open it and it's protected. So it's really done a stellar job in his team, you know, getting this all ready for us. The other piece that I wanted to mention is Gary and Mary Beth have done an amazing job of getting all the personal protection gear ready and ordered. They've set it up in the old guidance room, which is now our isolation room, and got everything labeled and on shelves. And so they can see all the supplies and know when to order more, as we get down low on certain things. So they've worked really well together this summer, not only doing their normal job of getting the building ready, but making sure we have all the right materials that we need. Our plans for most of the instruction is going to be outside. Teachers will continue to do what they've always done around outdoor education and keep that program going on a weekly basis. But we've now have 4 outside tents. 2 are dome and 2 are going to be like carports. And the dome tents are designed to be able to stay up all year long. We saw pictures of them at the Antarctica, so we'll see. We'll see how this works. But the idea is that they'll be able to, go out there in 3 seasons and be able to, conduct lessons and have kids be able to be outside. So each pod will be assigned to a tent. So the materials for that pod will be in that tent, and they'll be able to go back and forth between their classroom and the tent. And then the tents will be available for the specials to be able to go out there in the afternoon when they're there to do their specials lessons. So, that's sort of we've been busy, that's for sure. Gary has also been in touch with Vermont Efficiency, and an engineer has been out to sort of inspect our HV system. I'm not sure what HV stands for, but it has to have something to do with how the air moves inside the building to make sure the air quality is what it's supposed to be, up to standards that the state requires. And we've had a verbal report, which is letting us know that things are in pretty good shape. There's some few things that he had to do to make sure that everything was up to par. And then we'll get our full report, which I will share with the board so that we can get the big picture on, what's going on with that system and is there anything long-term that we might need to do. So yeah, a lot's been going on, and it's been a pretty intense week with a lot of great work, a lot of wonderful work. And like Liz, we're just ready for the kids to get there and be ready to just dig in and try all these plans and get learning back on track. I think that's it.
Great. Well, great report from both of you. Let me go back to one comment you made, Helen, and ask Liz if it's the same. You had said that all of the children, let's say whichever group they're in, A or B, that all of the children participating in the hybrid will be part of a class meeting, morning meeting is what you refer to, a morning meeting for 5 days of the week. And you said those children that are part of remote will come only on Wednesdays, although they're welcome to come the other days. But for the Grafton School, the remote children only participate in a morning meeting 1 day a week. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the language that we've been trying to use is remote and Vermont Learning Collab. So there's 2, kids are home learning remotely are part of our hybrid. And then the Vermont Collab is that other group. It gets confusing because everybody's, remote at some point. So they're all kids that are residents of Grafton and Athens are welcome to join us and encouraged to join us on Wednesdays. That's when we'll be doing science and social studies. But they're also welcome to join any morning and be part of their classroom community.
Great. Thank you. So Liz, can you address that for Westminster, please?
Yep. So when students who are in group A, like for example, students who are in school for group A and our group B students who are having their remote days, they will Zoom in to the morning meeting so that all students engaging in the hybrid will Zoom in. And that is actually how we're going to be taking attendance when they Zoom in to their morning meeting on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And Wednesday is the day for all of our virtual learners. If they want to join their hybrid counterparts, they can Zoom in to their class meeting. But on a day-to-day basis, our hybrid students are Zooming in to the morning meeting daily.
Okay, so if we adopt the vocabulary that's just used here, we'll be using remote learning for all the hybrid kids. It means the days that they're not physically at the building. And if we all
Right.
use the Vermont collaborative language, then we know we're referring to those who are getting the special program through the Vermont Learning Collaborative.
Right.
Okay? Okay. Let me ask if board members have any questions either for Helen or for Liz. Thank you both very much. Very helpful. I don't hear any yet. Let me ask Liz, I heard Helen say a little bit about the use of the outdoor spaces. You know, again, I raised this because for a couple of reasons. By going back to school in person, we are increasing the number of contacts that all the children have that potentially bring risk with them. We also know from the science, the evidence that in the outdoors, the germs are dissipated. They're not as likely to be as contagious as they are in confined spaces. So that's one of the many reasons that the use of these outdoor spaces is so helpful to us. Can you address how Westminster is going to be doing that? I know you also have equipment coming.
Yes, absolutely. And it's been a constant sentiment this whole week is I'm going to spend so much time outside. We need to get outside because that is everyone's fear is that the risk is reduced so much when you're outside. So we ordered 5 carports, the 10 by 20 large carports, and each carport is going to be assigned to an essentialist. So in Westminster, because we have 150 students, we were able to do pods. So we have a K1 pod, a second grade pod, a 3-4 pod, and a 5-6 pod. And we created a structure this summer based off the idea that, you know, Westminster used to have a number of regular ed paras that the SU, we're now moving into the student services. So that's going to be a shift in our school structure. And we're thinking, okay, how can we streamline, you know, our people are going to be absent more often just because of the concerns and maybe things that they would have gone to work with having a sore throat before now is going to cause them to stay home a little bit more. So we know that subs are going to be harder to get. And we know that we're going to have students coming back to school, not having been in school for 6 months. So we know that they're going to come with varying needs. So we wanted to really kind of streamline our supports. So each pod will be assigned classroom teachers, a Title I teacher, and an essentialist. So that essentialist, that carport that'll be placed in the field will be assigned to an essentialist. And that pod that the essentialist is connected with that week will access that carport. Obviously, the classes can use any outdoor space. If it's K1 and the first grade class is utilizing the carport, kindergarten classes can find another space outside. That's one thing that we don't have to worry about. But that just streamlines also the organization piece. So they're not scheduling with 12 other classes. They're just scheduling with one other class to access the 10.
Great. That's very helpful. Let me ask again if board members have any additional questions. What I'd like to do, yeah, Lynn, please go right ahead.
I would just like to say thank you to both Helen and Liz. This sounds like an amazing amount of work and coordination, and thank you for getting this all pulled together. So many different moving pieces. Yes.
Indeed. There's one more piece I could add that Liz just touched upon, the idea of subs and planning sheets. So one of the things we've been teaching our teachers this week are about a common planning sheet that has specific, you know, we call them learning targets. What's the focus that the students are going to have that week in learning? And it's in math and reading, writing, you know, science, social studies, all those major contents that we focus on. And they'll write those as their lesson plans. They'll make sure they're up on their Google Classroom so parents will know what's expected, kids will know what's expected. And then if we have a teacher, like Liz said, you know, wakes up in the morning and boom, they have a fever and they can't come, or they have a sore throat and they should stay home, the teacher that's in their pod, because so for us, the pods are K-2 and then 3-6, that teacher will be there, we'll take the whole class and we'll work with them because we know it will be very difficult to get subs.
Yeah,
and that means more people that haven't been in our bubble are coming into our bubble, and that makes us more vulnerable too.
What I started to say a moment ago, as we move on in the agenda, we're going to get into more of the kind of business-oriented things for the running of the district. But this is the time where we've really been focused on what it's going to be like for our children, for our families, for the teachers when we reopen the schools. So I'd like to create the opportunity for any members of the community, any others who are here as a part of the call this evening, to ask any questions. And for that, Chris, I'd like you to open up the chat. I see that it's disabled, and just see if anybody does have a question. There's no need, but if you do have a question or a comment you'd like to make, especially specific to reopening the schools, this is the time, because in the agenda we're going to be now moving on in just a moment or two. So we'll create that opportunity if anybody would like to ask a question or make a comment.
Cheryl, I'm not a member of
Yes.
but I can.
Oh, Jack, go ahead, please.
Sorry, the voice is really dying.
Try to get closer to the mic because you're not doing yet. Knowing that your voice is weak right now. Go ahead, please.
Sorry about that. I just wanted to say that I had said to our administrators that I thought it was important to be as proactive as we could to get people to use this time tonight to really get a lot of information out, not just to our parents, but just to the broader community. And I just want to thank Helen and Liz and, well, actually everybody, Chris, Lynn, for doing exactly that. This has been very helpful. I think it's exactly the sort of thing we should be doing. That's all I've got.
Appreciate it. Absolutely echo it. And Andy as well. So many questions about what's going to be going on with special ed, what's going to be going on with remote learning, what's going to be going on with the schools overall. So yeah, a special thanks to all three of the administrators plus the two principals for being here. If there are no questions in the chat, Chris, we'll go ahead and move on. But with thanks to everybody for listening in and being here. The next topic on the agenda is old and unfinished business for discussion and action, and I think we have none there. Actually, the old business, which has been for the last few months now, has been the whole challenge of reopening the schools in this environment. The next topic beyond that, new business, has to do, the first topic is tax rates, and I think that has to do with a bit of a dilemma we've had on the delay from both the state and I'm not sure all the factors that went into it, but I do know, according to Jack today, that we will get the official assessment that each of the towns may use tomorrow. I know in Westminster, I talked to our town manager today, and he's been working with best available information. This is one, Jack, you may want to add something to the topic, if you don't mind.
Not at all. I want to give a shout out to Flora and Teresa, who, when we brought this to their attention, jumped on it and helped straighten it out. Apparently there was some paperwork, which I actually think we did one previous time, but paperwork that still never got its way to the AOE, and Flora and Teresa and the team there hopped on it. I had sort of a joking conversation with Brad James today about, the urgency that he understood everyone was feeling about this. And he's, Flora, you can tell, your version of this almost identical conversation, if you like. And for those that don't know Flora, she is our new finance director, and this is a good time to introduce yourself.
Hi, yes. So I was working with Teresa. We did have some issues with getting a special spreadsheet that we needed to submit, but we did get it last week. So we completed that as fast as possible. This morning, I spoke to Brad, and he mentioned that he was reviewing our sheet because he wasn't in office. So he was in office today. So he's supposed to give us the information tomorrow by noon. That's what he actually promised to us, Jack and me as well. So I did mention to him, if we don't get it tomorrow by noon, that I'm gonna follow up. But so he's aware.
I think that one of the things that will help people understand that your office got some of this paperwork only just in the last week. It has been sitting someplace in a corner undealt with. It's you can't deal with paperwork you don't have, and I think it's important for our town officials to know that it wasn't a drop ball here. It was a drop ball, but not here. And I appreciate everybody taking care of this because our tax deadline was August 15th, and obviously we now have an entire town in default, and we need to get that straightened out. So my thanks to everybody.
There's no action that we need to take on this. This was simply a point of information, I think, for everyone.
Yes.
The next topic is advisory committees. And Lynn, I don't know whether I know you've been working with that idea. Each of the towns, Athens, Grafton, and Westminster, has people who've been elected and or selected and elected to serve as advisors to the school board representing their towns. And they are in an advisory role. We look forward post the extra pressures of the pandemic environment to engage in them even more fully. I wondered, though, Lynn, if you had anything you wanted to report at this time. Lynn Morgan.
No.
Okay. Then we'll move ahead, and the appointments and resignations. I can see that we have two here, both of whom are extraordinarily wonderful and dedicated people who we've been lucky to have working with us for a long time. Is this something that Lynn Carey will be giving us the background on, or Chris? One of the two, please.
Yeah, so these are two resignations, one from each school. I think it would be best that the principals can, they're aware of it. We knew it was coming, and for most cases, and so I think Liz and Helen can give the board a little bit of background in regards to. I know that as administration, we accept their resignations with regret. We're going to miss them. They're fine teachers, but we also understand the unique situations that everyone is in, and we're trying to support them as best as possible. So Liz, do you want to start with your resignation?
Yeah, and actually I can speak to Liz Bourne too. I think that probably should have been brought to the board in June or May. And I think probably on my part, I think it was maybe drowning in other things and didn't bring that up soon enough. But yes, she retired after spending a wonderful career at Westminster and then finishing up her career in Grafton. Very talented librarian and a huge resource to the school. So she's a wonderful human. So she'll definitely be missed in the schools, but luckily she's local, so we can still run into her. And Deb Bruswick decided this summer that she would not be returning based off of the current health climate. I have her resignation letter if you wanted me to read it, but I wasn't sure if that's what you needed. So she decided after 30 years of teaching, her last 5 years at Westminster, regretfully, decided to retire and move closer to her grandbaby, and felt safer, not risking things in her last years of teaching. So she just decided to retire, and we were able to hire another teacher to replace her here in Westminster.
We often, actually most often, do hear the letters of resignation. If you don't think that's appropriate, Liz, that's fine if there wasn't an expectation, but it is customary if you'd like to do so.
I can do that. Absolutely. I have it right here where it says, "Dear Principal Elizabeth Hardy, Superintendent Chris Pratt, and School Board. I have had the honor and the privilege of being a 5th and 6th grade teacher at Westminster Center School for the past 5 years, After deep deliberation, an honest health assessment, and many family meetings, I have come to the conclusion that I need to respectfully request to be released from my teaching contract for the upcoming 2020-21 school year. My reasons are multifaceted and have been brought to the forefront by the COVID-19 pandemic. These unprecedented and uncertain times have prompted me to evaluate my priorities, which are family and health. I'll be turning 60 in a few months and have had compromised immune system. I recognize that teaching in a classroom with students during COVID-19 pandemic is too high of a personal health risk. With that realization, I came to a different decision to relocate closer to family, which means moving out of state. On one hand, this was an extremely difficult decision because I absolutely love being a teacher. However, when I look at the broader picture, being safe and closer to family are the utmost importance. I'm confident that this is an appropriate course of action for me and our family. In sum, I respectfully request to be released from my teaching contract for the upcoming 2020-21 school year. Sincerely, Deb Westwick.
Oh, thank you. And as we've just said a moment ago, but both Deb and Liz are simply outstanding educators. And we,
Absolutely.
the Westminster community, has benefited from their leadership and their capability and their dedication for years now. I'm glad Grafton had a little chance to work with Liz as well. Chris, you've already accepted the resignations. I think the board might want to entertain a motion to regretfully accept the resignations of these two talented educators, Deb Riswick and Liz Bourne, and wish them the best. So may I have a motion to that effect? Jack has just made that motion. Thanks, everybody. I think that's a unanimous. I can see heads nodding, and I don't think we need to do a roll call on that. Oh, Jessica, go ahead.
No, I just said yes. That is, seems unanimous.
Yeah, they're great. Okay, let me go around, and it's time for director's comments. So with that, Jessa, we haven't heard your voice much tonight, and we always enjoy it and appreciate it. So Jessa, would you lead us off?
I really don't have anything. I think our teachers seem to be in a pretty good place in the administration. Everything seems to be coming together for the beginning of the year. So thank you guys for all your hard work.
Lynn Morgan.
I just ditto what Jessa said. Thanks to everybody. It has definitely not been an easy road of late. Many challenges. Thank you for sticking with us.
Jack, I want to just insert that agenda items for the next board meeting can be sent to you and to Chris Pratt or Lynn Carey, actually, as far as that goes. And the next board meeting, unless we hold a special meeting, would be on the 4th Thursday of the month of September. We're now on the 2nd and the 4th Thursdays of each month. But Jack, any director's comments from you?
Just one. I want to do a bit of a pitch for parents that are on the fence between the Learning Center and in-person hybrid model. I just think it's important for people to realize that the classes that we are going to have are going to be tiny. They're going to be private school level, almost tutorial level in many cases. And when we have classes as small as we are going to be having, some cases 4 kids in a class, you've really reduced your contact points down to the point where you are literally 1/100th of 1% as likely to have an issue as you would in a larger normal public school setting. And if parents are on the fence between the two programs, I'd like to just give a pitch to our in-school programs, because we know the principals, we know the teachers, they're excellent, they'll have time for you, and I hope folks will give that serious consideration. That's all I got.
Thank you, Jack. And that is especially true for the Athens-Grafton community. It's similar for Westminster. and Saxon's River, as I look at the numbers and the fact that we have the hybrid model, which means half of the children at each grade level who are enrolled to come to the in-person program, half will come, 2 days a week, and the other half the other 2 days, and then everybody doing the remote learning, as we're calling it, on the Wednesday. And that does mean that all class sizes will be relatively small. As I look at these numbers, maybe 8 or 9 at the Westminster School at a time. Would that be correct, Liz? Whereas they're a bit smaller, 4 to 6, let's say, in the combined classes at Grafton. But as Jack just made the point, with the physical distancing going on, with the hygiene, with the wearing of masks, and with the time outdoors, we have every reason to believe that this is a very safe and healthy approach to creating a great educational experience for the kids. And I do look forward to the fact that these dedicated teachers are going to be able to give this kind of time and attention to the smaller groups of kids in each of these classroom settings. Kids who are going to have anxiety, who are going to wonder what all this is all about, and they've been out of school for a long time. So it really is, I think all of the options, this goes back to Chris, to Lynn, to Andy, and all of the others who've been a part of this, and all the school board members and the community members, everybody who's helped with this planning process. We do have an excellent set of options for our parents and our children in these communities in Windham Northeast. And so we'll continue to do our best. Everybody does need to be vigilant. This is, a big deal virus. It's not anything to not take seriously. It really is. And we have we have the necessary precautions in place. People just need to abide by them. So with that, I think I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Oh, let me give that motion.
Thank you, Jack. All right. All those in favor? As Jack would always say, just sign off. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate all your help and your time.